Miers nav garantija, tā ir rīcība. Podkāsts Droši ir zināt, tavs ceļvedis drošības jautājumos kopā ar labākajiem ekspertiem. Klausies, skaties un saproti vairāk, jo droši ir zināt. Esiet sveicināti podkāstu Droši ir zināt skatītāji un klausītāji. Latvijā jau vairākus gadus ir izvietota NATO daudznacionālās divīzijas Ziemeļu štābs, kas veic savu ieguldījumu Latvijas drošībā. Tomēr sabiedrībā vēl aizvien pastāv bieži dažādi mīti par to, kas ir šī vienība, ko tā dara un kāds īsti ir tās ieguldījums Latvijā. Jau drīzumā šai vienībai mainīsies komandieris un attiecīgi komandiere. Tādēļ esam uz sarunu lūguši līdzšinējo Divīzijas Ziemeļu komandieri Jete Albinusu, kur pārstāv Dānijas Bruņotos spēkus. Major General, welcome to the program. Thank you very much that you joined us. At the beginning, there is a lot of misunderstandings in the Latvian society. What is doing the Division North and how it's connected with, let's say, security issues in Latvia and guaranteeing its independence. How could you explain that? Is it just some kind of average NATO unit that is deployed here in Latvia, or it's, let's say, unit that is responsible of the security of Latvia and which is which also includes some units from Latvia?
Well, in short, Multinational Division North is a NATO warfighting division, and it's capable and ready to defend Latvia. But in the current situation, the security responsibility, of course, lies in the hand of the Latvian armed forces. But in case of crisis and war, I take over a part of the area, and then I will defend it together with the Latvian armed forces.
So it's like a backup from the NATO side. If we cannot manage all those problems that will come, then you are switching in.
I won't use the word backup because if the situation escalates, we will already at that time take over. And then we will work together with the Latvian armed forces to defend it. So we will defend it together, shoulder by shoulder. Okay.
This division, which units are in this division?
Well, a division consists of a completely deployed division with everything. It's around 20 to 25,000 people. Currently on the ground, as we speak, we have more than 6,000 NATO troops. And the units below a division, that's brigades, and we have the mechanized infantry brigade from Latvia, and we also have the multinational brigade, where Canada is framework nation, but where a lot of other countries also contribute.
For example, Denmark, Sweden as well.
Yeah, Spain, Poland, a number of countries. And then there are also 3 more brigades that are training affiliated. Mm-hmm. That's the 2nd and 3rd National Guard Brigade, and that's also the 1st Danish heavy brigade.
Mm-hmm. How could you characterize how capable is this Division North? Because there are a lot of, let's say, claims in the Russian propaganda. Then it's not a serious force here in case of war. How can you describe it? How let's say, how powerful is it?
Of course, the division is powerful, and of course, we also know what Russia always tried to do. We will, at any given time, be ready to fight with what we have. And we have worked a lot with that during the last years. We have worked a lot with the mentality that, because it started as a training mission, and then we go into a warfighting purpose. And that means a lot, both mentally, but also equipment-wise. And that's the thing we keep improving all the time, and we keep developing our warfighting capabilities. But we will, again, at any given time, be ready to defend Latvia if required, no matter how much we have.
Mm-hmm. How independent are you in this task? Is there some structure that is above you? Which have to approve, let's say, the decision, let's say, of you as a commander, for example, or the next commander who will command this unit to enter in the fight, or you can, let's say, act from your perspective quite independently.
Yes,
with all this unit.
Yeah, I can act. because that's what it's all about. It might be a little bit long answer, but when the nations decide to join this division, they transfer the authority to NATO, and then that goes all the way down the NATO chain of command to me. So for all the troops, I have the authority to use them. And all troops on the ground have the right to, for example, self-defense. So the whole idea, and that's what we have planned for, is that we will move out even before, and maybe even one or two times when it's not necessary. Because if we as NATO forces stand shoulder by shoulder, integrated with the Latvian armed forces, should anybody, Russia, Belarus, or whatever, then attack, then they would not only attack Latvia, they would also attack NATO, and then we have the right to defend ourselves. That's the whole idea. But of course, that's something we keep working on to make sure we have as much freedom as possible. But basically, I can do that.
The reason why I'm asking this question to you is that we cannot ignore all those, let's say, internal political problems in the alliance. Just that's why I was checking, and I also know that the Denmark that you're representing also have some let's say issues with our strategic partner USA, and there were also a lot of statements, controversial statements from the President Trump about should he defend NATO and should US join in the case of war. So that's why I'm asking to you this question. How do you feel about that? I mean, don't you see as a high-ranking officer that there could be some kind of a problem since inside of the alliance and that could reflect on this command chain in the case of let's say situation where we will face some problems?
Well, let me start by saying that as a tactical commander here on the ground, we of course also have a relationship with Americans, and I don't feel any change at all at my level during the last 3 years. They are still as cooperating, they are still as supporting, and they always have been.
No matter even about those claims of Greenland.
Yeah, because that's not something that, is coming from the soldiers or even the NATO commanders that are, that have a U.S. background. I think it's much higher, so it's not something that we see or feel on the ground. That being said, I also think it's important to be aware of that NATO consists of 32 countries, but we have never been in any missions where all 32 countries have been represented, right? Mm. So we can still act within NATO with the countries that sign up for a mission, and that's actually the case here. And here in Latvia, we are capable of doing that with or without US. Of course, on the higher level, there is no secret about that the Americans have strategic assets that everybody is not depending on, but to a certain degree, yes. Indeed. But it is also these strategic assets that a lot of NATO countries now try to replace or buy themselves. So in general, we are more robust. But currently, I don't see the political strategic messaging from Trump affecting very much on the ground here, as also not affecting the way we can solve our task.
So then, if we talk about, let's say, the soldiers, then there are no problems among the soldiers?
No, not at all, not at all. I actually think we know exactly how many of them feel, so it's not us pushing anybody away, absolutely not.
Okay, but let's say in the smoking room, for example, as we call that, do you say make jokes on Americans about the Greenland? Or Americans do the jokes on the Greenland?
No. I think personally, I think there is a long way from strategic messaging to people on the ground, and very often people on the ground are not that different from each other.
Okay, thank God that the professionals are speaking on the same language. You're quite a long time here, but at the same time, your task here is very complicated to take a command over the... how much nations do you have in this?
I have 14 that contribute with troops, and in total I have 19 in the division, but some of them are represented by one staff officer.
Okay. even though 14 nations in a one division, it's a quite a big number, and we know that among the soldiers, every unit has its own SOPs, other, let's say, differences. So how could you manage that? And how hard is that for you and for all the personnel of the division?
Well, I think there are two things I would like to say. First of all, it's not only a disadvantage. It's actually very learningful, and it's very inspiring to be that many nations together, because we can learn a lot from each other. That being said, of course, when we have to fight, the way soldiers fight are not that different. But when it comes to interoperability, our ability to work together with different systems, it can be a challenge. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, also logistic can be a challenge. And these things is no hidden secret, but of course we also try to find solutions on that. And in many cases, I think the multinational brigade has been very good at that. They try to really establish, for example, multinational logistics to figure out, okay, how can we, support each other? How can one country make sure that they deliver to the rest of the countries if we have to do so? So we are always trying to find solutions for that. But of course, interoperability can be a challenge. The more you are, the more complex it can be. But on the other hand, it's also quite motivating to see how different nations can solve a tactical task on the ground. And we can definitely also improve our warfighting capabilities based on these, exchange of experiences.
Mm-hmm. What's in your mind? What are the, let's say, the most common, let's say, challenges in this work to work? With all those nations.
The three most common?
Yeah.
Misunderstanding due to cultural background. But let me give you an example.
Just give it.
Even though we are all soldiers, we are raised in a different way. In my country, as a Dane, a captain or a major wouldn't hesitate to just come talk to me. Or even if it's with a work-related issue. In Latvia, you don't bypass your next in line.
Yes, indeed.
It's actually very bad looked at. So we have to understand that there can be different ways of doing things. And one way is not necessarily more right than the other one, but we have to understand that. So we need to understand a lot about, the culture and how we are trained not to misunderstand each other. And maybe a Latvian will say, oh, that Dane is really, doing bad. Or maybe I would be sitting there as a commander and say, if they have an issue, why don't they come talk to me, right? So that could be an example.
Yeah, we in Latvia have this specific command chain. I know that very well. How could you characterize, let's say, the threat from the Russia? Some previous years ago, we spoke that we here in the Baltics, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and also a little bit of Poland, we faced the hybrid threat coming from the Russia. But now, if we look, let's say, back 1 year ago, then also Denmark faced the hybrid attacks, unknown drone attacks. Thank God that wasn't filled with this explosives. Yeah, but at the same time, it made also disruptions in let's say, civilian flight system. And so, how could you characterize how the threats of the Russia are developing, and what should we expect in the nearest future, and what are those things that we have to be ready?
I think it's important to say that what is happening in this hybrid phase is increasing. And of course, the opponent have an interest in trying to see how much they can do in that fair, because it actually means that, it's hard to figure out where does it then come from. So I think we will see a steady increase, unfortunately, in activities. And I think we all countries need to be aware of that. The number of activities here in the Baltics are higher. But as you said, it's just a question about, then we will see it in our own countries too. My own chief of defense, have said to me that, what you see and what you experience here It's just a matter of time. Then we will see it at the same degree in Denmark. So, for example, what I have done in relation to my own country, but also what I have offered the other countries who are here, because that's, you can say, actually what we can learn from being here, is that the way Latvia deal with the hybrid threat, the systems you have in place, and how we try to counter that, that's something many NATO countries can learn from. So we try to bring that back. But I think we will see also in future an increase. And I think it's an area where we all need to be much better. And the first things many of us needs to do is to be better to assess what is going on in the information domain. Because if you don't know what's going on, where it's come from, then you can also not put into place the right actions based on that. And that's at least an area where I have learned a lot from the Latvian. I have now implemented that in the division, and I start sharing that with nations that contribute, because it will be something that we really need to keep focusing on.
Mm-hmm. You already mentioned that the level that you faced in your homeland, in Denmark, which is not so far away, but quite far away from the Latvia. The number of such hybrid threats will increase. What do you mean with that? I mean, the information attacks, the attacks also including the involving with the drones, or for example, if we look on the let's say reviews of the Latvian intelligence society services of the last year, for example, they also mentioned that there was not like a terror attacks, but some kind of a sabotages with the burning of buildings and also attacking other people. So, what can we face, let's say, deeper in Europe in the next years, in your opinion? How it will transform?
Well, of course. It's hard for me to exactly say something about that. My opinion is that I think we will see many different actions on many different levels, depending on the resources our opponent have to do so. In my own country, you can say we are very supporting, like you are, to Ukraine, and of course it also makes us a preferable target. And that's what we see also back in Denmark, and that's what we try to prepare ourselves for. I also, of course, think that our engagement here is very important, but that also, means that we become a target and they would try to discredit Denmark or the actions we do on the military part. But we just have to counter that. So simple as that. We should not change our, commitment to NATO or our commitment here or anywhere else. I think the best thing we can do is that we keep standing together and keep the coherence.
During the last few months, we have faced the situations where more and more European politicians and also commanders of the staff of the militaries are claiming that Russia can launch not a hybrid but a conventional one attack on one of or few of the EU and NATO members in the next couple or 3 years. What's your thoughts on that? Is it possible? How possible is this? And what should we do to avoid such threats?
Well, these assessment comes from different intelligence services, and I think, of course, they are very reliable. I'm not able to predict anything better or something like that. But we also have to be aware that they comes with some, or they are followed by some preconditions. A lot here in the Baltics and also in the northern part of Europe, or in the Nordic countries, depend on what's happening in Ukraine. If the war continues, most likely Russia won't have the resources to attack another country. But again, I think it's likely. So what we, of course, all do is that we are looking for, in military terms, it's called indicators and warnings. And based on that, we do all the preparations. But so far, if you look at the strategic messaging from Russia, I think it's likely. I think Putin have more than once said that he would like to have the borders that existed before 91. And of course, we do not have an interest in that. So the best thing we can do is as European to keep improving our military forces, to keep improving our ability to defend together. And that's why we have NATO also. It's a defense alliance. It does not have any, offensive means. But we need to prepare ourselves for worst case, and I definitely also think that's what we are doing here. And I can tell you that if you come from, for example, again, one of the Nordic countries, and you arrive here, you very easily and fast feel that you are closer to the border, and you also really feel how important it is for you, of course, as a nation, to keep your independence and freedom. And I think for myself and all my soldiers, that really commit you to the task we have here. And that's why it's so important that we keep improving our ability to work together and fight together so we can defend that right.
Mm-hmm. Will we get in the time, with this preparation work that's going on across the Europe right now? For example, your home country, Denmark, also donated all the, the previous artillery systems that you had to Ukraine, and now you have to, do such a work as replace that. And as we know here in Latvia, it take a lot of time, and that's not just the artillery that we are speaking here that we have to be changed and improved in Europe. So will we have the time to do that? All those things that we have started right now.
Well, I normally answer because as a military commander, you will never say you have enough or you have all what you would like. So I think my point is, and I think it's the same for the different countries, that you try to get as much as you can, as fast as you can, and you prepare with what you have in your hands. And I can't do anything else, and many nations can't do anything else. But I really think that at least now there is no doubt about what we need to do, and I think many countries are doing whatever they can. Personally, I also think it's very, very important that we continue to support Ukraine. And I think that's the best thing we can do. So we will just keep improving, keep preparing, and that's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go back to the Latvia. You have worked during those previous years with our allies from the NATO, and also with our national armed forces. How could you characterize the mood and this division among the soldiers and among the personnel? How high is the fighting spirit?
I think it's quite high. I think they have realized why we are here. And as I said to you, they also feel the importance as soon as you are on the ground. And as soldiers, you really want to fulfill your task. You want to do it different. And as we speak right now, a big exercise is ongoing. The troops are out there preparing themselves, working together with the National Guard, the Mechanized Infantry Brigade from Latvia, and also meeting the populations. So I think we are definitely ready to do what we are here for.
Mm-hmm. How could you characterize, the development of Latvian armed forces, and especially of the mechanized brigade? We have switched to the draft system right now, and from my perspective, what I was surprised about, that those youngsters, they're willing to learn, they're willing to fight, and they're willing even to go to the service. So how can you characterize how hard the fist is this mechanized brigade, and could it give a real good punch to any adversary that will come here?
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Because I cannot think of anything bigger than, defending your own country. And that's the case, right? That being said, one of the things that I have been quite impressed of by the Mechanized Infantry Brigade, but also by the National Guard brigades, is your agility and innovation, how fast you have taken lessons learned from Ukraine and changed the way you, for example, command a brigade, how you have implemented the use of drones, both in the MRI Brigade, but also in the National Guard brigades. And here you are very fast, much more agile than many of the countries that are here from NATO, including my own country. So that's an area where we have learned a lot. We really try to copy the different tactics that are developed if it comes to implementing drones. I know that also how a brigade headquarters move out in the terrain today, try to survive, is also, being copied and learned from the other brigades. And the brigade commanders are exchanging their views on that. All of that being said, of course, we also benefit a lot from the deep understanding you, of course, have of Latvia and the Latvian terrain. So whenever troops coming in and rotate, it's very important that we link up, again, both the MRI Brigade, but also with the National Guard brigades, so we can, again, learn from you. So I think you're not only ready to defend your countries, I also think you have different approaches that we can learn from.
Okay. As a commander, how do you, let's say, assess your service here in Latvia during those years, and what are those things that you have achieved, and what, let's say, are those things that you will leave to your colleague that will replace you?
The first thing is that, we started as division headquarters, training headquarters. Now we are a warfighting division. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that we now have a common plan for how we together will defend Latvia. The trust that has been established between, the NATO troops here and the Latvian armed forces, and how close we operate together from my level and down to the soldiers' level, I think that's very good. I'm also proud of that we now are getting more out of the training areas, more out in the terrain, and rehearsing the real plan. What I will leave to my commander is to continue that development, because as we talked about in the beginning, you will never be good enough. I also have a sports background, right? And as soon as you, cross the finish line, you set up a new goal and you try to cross the next finish line. And I think you can always be better. And we have to continue that. And I'm sure my successor will continue that work, because, of course, it's so important. The more we can show that we are capable and ready to defend Latvia, that's the way we can hopefully deter Russia from even thinking about attacking the Baltics, and, of course, especially Latvia.
You're living quite long here in Latvia. What is your most favorite thing here? I mean, what do you like in Latvia, in our traditions, in our land, in our people?
Oh, there are many things, but if I should, take something that is also very different from my home country, that's when you celebrate your Independence Day, and we have this, these many different ways of celebrating it. For me, it has been driving in front of the military parade, of course being proud of all my troops, but especially when I then drive out on the road and I meet or I see all the people, the Latvian people standing there and waving. I never experienced something like that. It really touched my heart, and it really makes me think, okay, why I'm here and what I need to do. That's something I could not imagine happening in my own country.
So in some part, you already, at this small time, you feel like a Latvian.
Yeah, I definitely do. I have to admit that, it will probably never leave.
Okay. What you are going to do when you will return back home to Denmark?
I will be a commandant of our defense academy in Denmark, where all the schools belong to, and also all the science we do in the military. So I think I will bring back some experience here. I think I will make sure that, the people working here know what they actually have to contribute to, because that reality and sense-making has, becomes quite clear when you're here.
Major General Jette Albinus, the commander of the Multinational Division North. Thank you very much, madam, that you visited us, and thank you very much for your service as to your country in Denmark and also here in Latvia. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you so much.
Dāmas un kungi, paldies, ka skatījāties. Meklējiet mūsu sociālos tīklos, skatieties mūsu YouTube, meklējiet arī Facebook. Un arī, ja braucat, piemēram, pie stūres, droši šo sarunu varat klausīties arī Spotify vietnē. Skatieties, klausieties, izdariet secinājumus un sargājiet sevi, jo droši ir zināt. Veiksmīgu dienu jums, paldies, ka skatījāties. Atā.